Hello, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to be reacting to 5 disturbing crimes caught on Google Street View. I am ready. How about you? Let's hop right in. This video, by the way, is by Chilling Scares. I'm going to link it down below, and it is called 5 Disturbing Crimes Caught on Google Street View. Let's fucking go.
In October 2024, a Google Street View car captured what looked like the aftermath of a horrific crime in the small Spanish town of Tahueco.
These always
It
scare
captured
me.
a man loading a large white bag into the trunk of his car.
What could be in the bag?
Now, this easily could have had
This
an
could have been
innocent
anything, though.
explanation. However, many noted that the bag's shape looked a lot like a human body.
It kind of
And
does.
unfortunately,
It
that is
kinda
exactly
does.
what it turned out to be.
No
The
way.
bag contained the remains of a 32-year-old Cuban man named Jorge Luis Perez.
Rest
He
in
had gone
peace.
missing in November 2023 after sending a message to his family saying he was leaving Soria, the place he had lived,
Oh
with
my
a girl he had
God.
met, and that he would no longer be using that phone. One of his cousins found this highly suspicious and reported his disappearance to the police. However, despite the investigators' best efforts, they were unable to find any clues that could help them find Jorge. There were no witnesses or any surveillance footage that could point them in the right direction.
Except
so
for this.
the case went cold for months. Or at
For
least until one of
months.
the investigators came across the Google Street View images in November 2024.
That's
Coincidentally,
crazy.
the Street View car had also captured the same man carrying the white plastic bag in a wheelbarrow on the way to his car. These images proved to be the final piece in solving the mystery of Jorge's disappearance. They were able to narrow down the list of potential suspects.
That's what I was
tracing
saying.
the
How did
vehicle
they
back to
know who
its
the
owner,
man
a
was?
48-year-old Tahueco resident named
Ooh.
Manuel Isla Gallardo, who worked at the town hall in the neighboring town. However, Manuel had no prior history of violence or any other illegal activity, making it difficult for the authorities to arrest him without any
Yeah,
solid
without any
evidence.
proof or
But
anything.
after tapping his phone and trailing him for a couple
Ooh,
of weeks,
they
the
figured it
investigators
out.
uncovered the connection they were looking for. He was in a relationship with Jorge's partner, and as later
Oh.
investigation would reveal, Manuel and this partner kidnapped and later killed Jorge because of this love triangle.
What?
They likely would have gotten
Well,
away
I
with
don't
it as well if not for
understand.
the Street View images, a discovery that was
I don't
nothing short of a
understand
miracle.
people like
You see,
that. Like,
the town of Tahueco
just
has
leave
fewer than
them.
50 residents, so there were no eyewitnesses to Manuel putting Jorge in his car. Additionally, the
Wow.
Google Street View car just so happened to be driving through Tahueco for the first time in 15 years.
15
Both
years.
Manuel and his partner were arrested on November 11th after investigators found more evidence
Good.
linking them to Jorge's disappearance in their
Good.
home.
I'm happy they were
Their
arrested.
arrest
That's
also
crazy.
led to the discovery of Jorge's remains in a cemetery about 15 minutes from where the Google Street View images were captured.
Damn, they put him in a
finally
cemetery?
bringing closure to his tragic
I mean,
case.
at least, right? That's crazy, though. And so
In
sad.
December 2018, the Brisbane Police Department in Australia received a missing person report regarding 46-year-old Priscilla Bruton.
Oh, she's
She
pretty.
was an American beauty queen who moved to Australia with her daughter back in 2013 to start a new life. Things were going well for Priscilla. However, during the latter half of 2018, she stopped posting on social media and completely cut off communication with her friends and family back in the US. After months of silence,
That's
one
not
of her
weird,
friends
though. I feel like
contacted
I
the
would do that.
police, sparking an investigation into her disappearance. But she was nowhere to be found. She was last seen at the house of her boyfriend, Mark Waden. who
Always
she
the
met during a Zumba class in
boyfriend. Always the
2017.
boyfriend.
However, when questioned, Mark claimed that they had actually broken up back in June 2018.
Of course they
He also
did.
suggested that she went missing on purpose to avoid immigration, since she was apparently overstaying her visa by that
Oh,
point.
was she an
But this
illegal?
wasn't enough to convince the investigators
She
of
was
his
illegal in
innocence,
Australia.
as they also
Ooh.
found Priscilla's car just 11 miles from his home. With no other leads, police began to consider the possibility of a potential homicide.
Yeah,
And that's where
he's
they made a grim
suspicious.
discovery. Priscilla was, without a doubt, dead. Even more shockingly, she was buried in Mark's front yard. Cadaver dogs helped pinpoint her exact burial location
The
near
front
home's
yard?
entrance, prompting an excavation to recover her remains on June 8th, 2019. However, while the investigators did find some evidence from the dig site, most of the body was completely missing, which didn't seem
Where-
to make any sense.
Yeah, where would
As
he
it
put the
turned out,
body?
Mark caught wind of the upcoming excavation in May, hired a construction crew to dig up the area
Oh.
with Priscilla's remains, and transported it to an unknown location with a trailer. What he didn't know, however, was that his crime had been captured on camera long before
What
the
a
investigation
fail.
ever began. In August 2018, a Google
Being
Street
caught
View
on a
car
Google
mapped the
Street
Breckenridge area around
cam
Mark's
is
home,
crazy.
and as it passed in front of his property, it captured what appears to be the very grave he dug for Priscilla, right where she was eventually buried. It even showed the trailer he would later use to hide the evidence. This, combined with testimonies from neighbors who saw him digging in the yard at unusual hours, made it impossible
That's so
for him to
weird.
play
Why
dumb
are
and get
you
away with his
digging?
crime. He was finally
Obviously,
arrested on the
somebody's gonna
13th
see
of
you.
June and is currently awaiting sentencing
Because you
while
look
under
like you
house
live in a
arrest.
normal neighborhood, like a normal suburban neighborhood. Like, people check on their neighbors.
Sometime in 2018, Google
People look at their
updated the
neighbors.
Street View in the Ecatepec de Morelos
Ooh, is this
municipality
Brazil?
in Mexico.
Oh,
Among the
Mexico.
many new snapshots
I don't know
were the
anything.
pictures of this
Ignore me.
rather unassuming empty lot with bags of trash scattered around the overgrown plants.
Yeah, this looks like
However,
nothing.
those trash bags concealed a horror beyond what anyone in that neighborhood could have imagined.
Is that a
The
body?
truth came to light when the local police
looks like nothing.
investigated a string of disappearances in the area and noticed a few similarities. All of the missing individuals were women. They were all young, and most
Yeah, they are all
importantly, they had all
pretty.
received calls and messages from the same woman before their disappearance, 28-year-old Patricia Martinez. She lived in a house just 100 meters away from that empty lot with her 33-year-old husband, Juan Carlos Hernandez, and their 4 children. The two made a living by selling clothes, food, jewelry, anything they could right outside their home.
Okay.
On the surface, they appeared to be a perfectly normal couple.
Yeah,
But despite
seemed
their
normal.
seemingly ordinary lives,
They had a rice
authorities
pot.
kept an eye on them for weeks, suspecting that there was much more going on behind closed doors. Then, on the 4th of October, investigators saw the two walking outside with a stroller. They suspected the stroller was carrying the 2-month-old daughter of a missing woman
A stolen
who had vanished together
baby.
with her mother a month prior. Hoping to prevent any harm to the baby, the investigators moved in and apprehended both Patricia and Juan. However, when they inspected the stroller, its contents left them in disbelief. Instead of a live
happened?
child, it contained the dismembered remains of a woman. The couple was headed to the empty
What?
lot near their home to dispose of the evidence of their horrific crime. But this was only
It
the
didn't
tip
have
of
a
the
baby
iceberg.
in it. It had
As
a
the cops
dismembered
searched their home,
body.
they discovered
It's
dozens of
crazy.
dismembered human remains stored in
Dozens?
their fridge, wrapped in plastic bags, and some encased in cement.
Oh my
The cement
god.
bags in their home also matched the ones that were scattered throughout the empty lot seen on Google Street View. Soon after their arrest, Juan admitted to everything and revealed the
Oh
true
my
extent
God.
of their gruesome crimes.
Dozens
According to his
is crazy.
statements, the two had killed almost 28 women since 2012,
28?
including their neighbor's 13-year-old daughter. They would lure
What?
poor, vulnerable women with the promise of cheap or free clothes and high-paying employment.
That is so
before ending
messed
their lives
up.
In the most
Oh my God.
unspeakable ways and discarding their remains in
28
plastic
is
bags or cement.
crazy.
And if that wasn't bad enough, Patricia also admitted to cooking and cannibalizing parts of their victims as well as feeding them
Ew.
to their dogs.
That is so
However,
gross.
the most shocking part of it all was Juan's complete lack of remorse, with him boldly declaring his hatred of women and vowing to do the same again if he was ever given a
But
chance.
he was doing it with a woman.
Coman carne de estas mujeres. Ellas
What?
siguen respirando mi oxígeno.
Then let them continue breathing?
Voy a seguir haciendo todo el daño que yo pueda.
What?
Metiéndome de ese daño.
The only silver lining in this entire case is that the baby was unharmed.
Thank
They
God.
had actually sold it to another couple for 15,000 pesos, or about $770.
Wow, that's
These
nothing.
buyers were later arrested and the baby was rescued safely. As
Thank
for
God
Juan and
the baby
Patricia,
was
they were
rescued. Oh my
sentenced to nearly
God.
350 years behind bars, where they remain to this day.
That is crazy. 28
If you go to this
people.
location in
Thank
Barron,
God the baby
Wisconsin,
is
on Google
safe.
Street View, you will see cop cars and police tape surrounding this residence.
Okay,
On
what
October
happened?
16th, 2018, this Street View car captured the aftermath of one of the most monstrous crimes in Wisconsin's recent history. It happened a day earlier when the 21-year-old Jake Thomas Patterson knocked on the Kloss residence at around 12:50 a.m. and claimed to be a cop.
Okay.
James Kloss came to the door and demanded to see Jake's badge before opening the door. In
Yeah.
a fit of rage, Jake raised the shotgun he'd brought with him and shot James through the door. He then fired another shot to break the lock and enter the house. Meanwhile, Denise Kloss locked herself and her 13-year-old daughter Jamie in the bathroom and made this disturbing 911 call.
Oh my God.
County 911, where is your husband? Hello?
That's
Officers rushed to the
terrifying.
scene, but unfortunately, it was already too late.
Yeah.
Not long after the 911 call, Jake shot down the bathroom door as well and opened fire on Denise. By the time the officers arrived, both James and Denise were already dead. However,
That is so
the more
sad.
urgent concern was Jamie, who was nowhere to be found. It
Oh,
didn't
the
take long for
girl.
officers to realize that Jamie had been taken by Jake. In
Why?
fact, one of the responding officers had unknowingly passed Jake's fleeing car while rushing to the Kloss residence.
Oh
As
my
later
God.
investigation would reveal, Jake had developed a sick infatuation with Jamie after seeing her get off her school
Ew.
bus. And
Oh my
kidnapping
God,
her
people
was
are
his
so
primary motive
creepy.
that night.
People are
He
so
took her to his
weird.
cabin about 80 miles away from her home and locked her in one of the rooms. And while the investigators started searching for Jamie almost immediately, they had nothing that could lead them in her direction. The FBI even put out a nationwide missing person report and offered a $25,000
People
reward for
are
any
so
information that could
creepy.
lead
Like,
to
I don't
Jamie's rescue.
understand
Unfortunately,
why people are
none of
weird
this
like
led
that.
to anything substantial.
Like,
and the
why
hope of
do
finding
this?
her alive kept declining with each passing day. But then, on January 10th, 2019, the Wisconsin Police Department received a call they never expected.
Was it from him?
County 911.
Hi, I have a young lady at my house right now.
Oh
It says her name is Jamie Kloss.
As
my
it
God.
turned out, Jamie escaped
She
Jake's
got
cabin
out.
88 days after her disappearance and asked for help from one of his elderly neighbors.
So how did she come up upon your cabin?
I was walking my dog, and we were almost home, and she was walking towards me, crying, saying, "You gotta help me, you gotta help me."
Oh my God, poor
She pulled
girl.
off this remarkable escape by carefully studying Jake's routine for weeks, tracking when he left and
She's
how long he was gone,
amazing.
waiting patiently until
This
the
girl
perfect
is
opportunity
amazing.
revealed itself. After getting in contact with the police, she told them everything she knew about her kidnapper, resulting in Jake getting identified and arrested following a traffic stop. Jake stood trial on May 24, 2019. He pleaded guilty to all charges and was given 2 life sentences without
Can
the
you
possibility
hold
of
on? Imagine though, like she studied everything that he was doing and then got out on her own, and she's a child. Wow, I am impressed.
parole plus 40 additional years in prison. In February 2011, a Google Street View car captured what looked like an abduction in progress in Sao Paulo, Brazil. It shows a burly man saying something to a woman while she's trying to get away, while a car
mean,
with
does
an
that
open
look like
trunk
that?
is parked nearby. The next slide shows the man restraining the woman, while we can also see
Oh.
another man strangely sitting in the car's trunk. And the next slide provides
my
a clear
God.
view of the scene,
Yeah.
showing the man in the white shirt seemingly trying to force the
Like,
woman while
taking
she bites
her.
his hand in what looks like an attempt to break free. However, the final slide is even more unsettling as it shows the parked car driving away with neither the woman nor the man in the white shirt visible anywhere. Unfortunately, despite the alarming circumstances shown in these snapshots, I couldn't find any additional information about the alleged kidnapping. No news articles,
Wow,
missing
literally
person
nothing.
reports, or criminal investigation
That's crazy.
records. It's almost as if the crime never happened.
But it definitely
which,
did.
Given the situation,
Maybe she got away,
isn't
though.
entirely out of the realm of possibility. There's a good chance that this disturbing scene has a perfectly innocent explanation.
I don't know, it looks really
Maybe the
weird.
white shirt man and the woman know each other, and instead of an attempted abduction, he's simply trying to tickle her.
I mean,
This
he is
would explain
smiling.
why he has a cheerful, almost smug grin in one of the snapshots, and why she's holding onto her cigarette while trying to free herself from a presumably dangerous situation. But even with all that in mind, the possibility that this was a real crime that just flew under the authorities' radar is also just as possible.
I don't know, what do you
The lack of
think? I
reports and
feel
news
like
articles doesn't
it's
necessarily
weird.
mean nothing happened. It could just as easily point to a bigger systemic issue with bribery, corruption, and cover-ups that allow serious crimes to stay hidden in plain
Why is he
sight.
smiling so big?
Curiously,
That's
Google has
weird.
since removed the most ominous snapshot from Street View for some unknown reason. Unfortunately, it's been over 14 years since these images were captured, and without any new evidence or leads,
They're not gonna do
this
anything about
case
it.
likely will forever
Yeah.
remain a mystery.
I wonder. That's so weird, huh? Like, what do we think was happening? What do we think? Do we think that it was anything? He looked like he was happy, but I can't see her face, so I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think? I want to know what you guys think. I don't know. I feel like it could go either way. Like, maybe it's nothing. Maybe she was just getting a hug, a little weird hug, but a hug. It could have been a hug. I don't know. All right, you guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today and watching this video. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye.